so much for having me here today. Again, Holly Martinez, the Executive Director of the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. I love this event. I love seeing so many of you. It's an honor to be here and talk a little bit about the work of the Commission. You know, the State Commission is the only independent state agency dedicated exclusively to women and girls. But that hasn't always been the case. When the Commission was established in 1965, surprisingly, it was composed of all male commissioners. You know, go figure, right? Just another example about how women have historically been left out of conversations and where decisions are being made in places of power. And unfortunately, women continue to be left out of places of power. As the Commission nears nearly its 60-year anniversary, we look completely different today, with over 17 commissioners who really represent the depth and breadth of the diversity of this state, for which we are really proud. And together we're fighting for equity and justice for all women and girls by continuing to advocate on their behalf with the governor, the legislature, and key policymakers from throughout the state. But to be effective champions of this work, we have to be relevant and we have to be compelling. We can no longer talk about women's issues as a moral obligation, expecting people to do the right thing. Instead, our work at the Commission has been focused on reframing the conversation around women, because we know women are essential to California's future. Now, the Commission has spent much of the last 3 years really looking at what's happening to women. Through our research, we published the California Blueprint for Pandemic Economic Recovery to analyze the impact that COVID has had on women from an economic lens. Here's what we learned. During the pandemic, women were the essential workers caring for our loved ones in hospitals, educating our kids, keeping our stores open, all while adding to the burden of responsibilities in the home. Raise your hand if that sounds familiar to you. Yeah, same. Women stepped up big time to keep our homes, our communities, all moving forward. And amid the pandemic, employment affected poor women and women without college degrees the hardest. On the contrary, women with degrees and without children who remained employed saw their earnings rise. This is a clear indication that our systems were not built for working mothers specifically to thrive. And between entry-level and C-suite, the representation of women of color dropped by more than 75%. Today, we know women are continuing to struggle with burnout, lack of steady employment, and access to childcare, which as an industry is one of the slowest to recover today. Our care industry employs some of the lowest wage workers who predominantly are women of color, making on average $12 an hour, and as the Washington Post pointed out recently, is less than the average hourly rate of dog walkers. What does this say about the value we place on women's work, who are performing some of the most important jobs in our society? To make things worse, the pandemic added an estimated 36 years to the time it will take for women to make the same amount as men, bringing that total to 135 years. We know if you paid women fairly, the average woman would have enough additional money for 1 year for one of the following: more than a year's worth of food, more than 9 months of rent, an entire additional year of childcare, 1 year of tuition and fees at a 4-year public university, or 7 months of health insurance. If all California working women and working single mothers earn the same as men in comparable roles, the state's poverty rate for women would be reduced by 40%. That would add additional $68 billion to California's economy. And we know we need action now to make economic independence a reality for women, and we must end the wage gap. While acknowledging and thanking us and celebrating women is so important, it should not start and end with a thank you. Don't just thank us, pay us. Now, one thing to recognize and acknowledge is that the critical impact of temporary support during the pandemic did in fact help Californians from experiencing deeper levels of poverty. For a period of time, because of temporary support, did you know that the national poverty rate was cut in half? The stimulus checks help prop up household balance sheets and largely went towards necessities and paying down debt. Women who had access to credit saw their credit scores improve during the pandemic, especially those with limited credit access. This is a critical component to wealth building, generating financial assets like home ownership, savings, planning for future retirement. And at the Commission, we are championing policy and legislation to address long-standing systemic inequities. We're really proud in 2022 we co-sponsored 2 key pieces of legislation that the governor did in fact sign into law. The first is AB 1287, which eliminates the pink tax on goods marketed to women, eliminating the pink tax and prohibiting price differentials for substantially similar goods. For example, if you go into Target and you buy a pink razor instead of a black one, you're going to be paying additional 50, 75 cents more just for the simple color of it. Additionally, we co-sponsored 1162 by Commissioner Monique Limon to increase pay transparency and equity as key to building a workplace and a future California in which the gender wage gap will no longer exist. This vital legislation requires employers to disclose pay ranges in job listings, and employees who request it can have that, as well as pay data reporting for contractors. So when you go to apply for a job, you will get a pay range, and historically women undervalue their worth and undersell themselves going into those job negotiations. Or oftentimes, employers will ask for your previous salary, and historically women have been underpaid, so we're perpetuating these inequities. So one, they can't ever ask you for your previous pay salary, first and foremost. And secondly, look at that range, and we hope that that's a step for you to help advocate for yourself to eventually end this wage gap and pay you what you're worth. But there's always so much more work to do, right? California must also address a care system that was patchwork to begin with and envision a new approach to including more affordable, accessible childcare options for families, improving wages and incentives for caregiving professions, and investments into elder care. Dedicating resources to support women's transition to new occupations and higher skilled roles is necessary. We must invest in women-owned small businesses and support innovation to generate more venture capital for growth and scale. Significantly investing funds to make up for lost years in retirement savings, so women who have lost jobs and advancement opportunities have an opportunity to get back. When women have these opportunities coupled with a living wage, it is a step forward to ending generational poverty and a clear path forward to long-term recovery. Now all we need is a political will to make this happen. In closing, I have one final ask of you all. In your blue bag, there is this cool little card, Equal Pay Pledge, and a QR code. At the Commission on Status of Women and Girls, we partner with first partner Jennifer Siebel-Newsom on the Equal Pay Pledge. To date, over 200 companies of all sizes, Fortune 500 companies to small businesses, have taken this pledge. And what you're pledging to do is to eliminate the wage gap by looking at your own internal pay data, your own policies, and taking the action steps you need to make a difference and end the wage gap. I would love for every business owner or somebody who works for a business to ask their company to sign this pledge. It is an important step in acknowledging it's going to take every strategy and tactic to move this needle to end the wage gap. And then finally, this is actually my very last speaking event engagement as the ED for the Commission. As of June 1st, I know, it's like, heartbreaking. But I actually could not think of a better audience to kind of end my tenure at the Commission, as I've been there for nearly 4 years, and we've seen such incredible growth and resources and funding. But I am leaving the Commission in great hands. Darcy Totten in the back. Raise your hand, Darcy. She'll be quickly moving to the front up here. And, serving as the interim executive director. So if you have any questions about the Equal Pay Pledge or our work, I will always be a champion for it, but you can reach out to Darcy. I am going to be the executive director of the Representation Project, which is the national nonprofit that works on using film and voice to end gender disparities across the nation. So I will continue to be an advocate and fight in this work, but I so appreciate you guys having me. What a wonderful day, what a wonderful conference. Take the Equal Pay Pledge. Let's end the wage gap together. Thank you for your time.